I think that's good for her. Like I said, I'm probably going to go back at least on one or two and try to figure out how to get these out. I don't really know what I would do. I'm just going to have to clone and clean up and stuff. I could decrease her chin, but she didn't say anything about that. So I'm reluctant to kind of do that because that's her and she was a big laugher and smiler. So I'm going to say that this image is complete. Again, let's look at that. There's the original, there's the cleaned up version. I think she looks great. When you're in Photoshop, you just click close and save. And the beauty is my computer's moving super slow. Is that it brings it back into Photoshop and it calls it your original file and then like edit PSD because it's now a Photoshop document, no longer a raw image. So there's that. So let's look at like this image. I'm not going to do any massive editing on her. This is my, like I said, this is my standard preset that I use for my thing. Sometimes I do a touch of decreasing the reds, depending on this very strange light this day. I'll pop a little shadow here because, just to kind of fill in their eyes. And then I like to pull the highlights down to pull these clouds back in. But honestly, for this sort of situation, I'm probably done with this image. I don't know if that's a dead pixel or what, but for the sake of education, I will show you how to take out this dog hair and whatever this thingamabobber is here. So go into your develop module. This is the easiest thing ever. I love Lightroom. So this is like basically like the clone brush. And you zoom in here and use this little thing to move you around. Yeah, that's a little dead pixel. And you just get your tiny little thing and it works like that patch tool, but it kind of automatically finds it. If it's not the right spot, you just move your source image around. And like same thing with this. You can use it. You can make it a dot, or if you need a line, you go like that, and voila, it's gone. It has the same sort of things as Lightroom, where you can just where'd it go? There it is. Work on the opacity, and you could go back and change it. This is the cool thing about Lightroom is you go back and you can change. It's so small, you're not going to see it. You can change the opacity on the one you're actually working on. Okay, so what else would I do here? So I like to have a little grain in my images, but I'll show you what this image, what my preset does. Okay, so it's got color balance. This is like my outside one. So excuse me, this is kind of what, again, my look is. It's pretty middle of the road, slightly magenta, slightly warm. I sometimes will pop it up a touch more for warmth if it's a daytime thing. This was evening, so I'll kind of leave it in my slightly cool magenta look. It's a tiny bit overexposed here. I usually don't have to bump up my contrast. Like I showed you, I pull the highlights down a little bit for things like the sky and pop up the shadows, which is lightening the shadows a little bit. These are whites is at 0. Black is like making your blacks blacker. I like them slightly blacker. If I have them at 0, they're just muddy. So I have them about there. Clarity, I do not like the way clarity looks. It gives this crazy HD effect. And I don't actually know exactly what clarity is. It's not sharpening, but I find just a touch gives it a little crispness. Um, this is a pretty standard tone curve, a real gentle S curve. Um, I like my reds to be a little bit. So, have you looked at this before? Here we go. This has got your hue, your saturation, and your luminance, so you can kind of look at each part of your image and change the color. So reds, if you want your reds more orange, see it change her lipstick a little bit. So my reds, I like to be more red than orange. My yellows are a little more green. My greens tend to be a little more blue. Although in this one, my greens are so yellow, and I really don't like. I don't shoot on plain grass very often, and plain grass really bugs me. So normally what I do when I have grass is I pull the saturation down in green because I like this color more. But I have to be careful since she's wearing a green dress to not let that affect that. So I would either do that in Photoshop with masking or just do it slightly and live with green grass. Luminance is brightness. So if you want your greens to be like super bright or super dark, you work on those. Same thing with reds. Reds is usually, it's kind of nice to pop them up a little bit. I find at weddings because people get drunk and turn red and it brightens their face a little bit. So I usually, this situation, they were fine, but I usually pop my reds down a little bit and then brighten them. And it just tends to make people not look quite as blotchy. And then for each image, sometimes it'll be under weird lighting and you need to take the magenta down or whatever. I don't do any split toning on these images. I have a little bit of noise reduction and a little bit of sharpening. Enable profile corrections, I most often click on. That changes based on the type of lens that you've used. So this was shot with my 24-70, so it's a little bit wide, and it just kind of takes that out a little bit. That's transforming, so if you need to kind of work on the perspective of your image, I don't use it for these. Tiny bit of vignetting I use on this. You can just see just a tiny bit. That's 0, and I use it about there. I don't use it on every image. I usually use it on portraits. Just a slight. You can go. People go like super overboard, and that's too much. That's about perfect. This did not go back to 0, did it? So grain is set to 0 on this image. Dehaze I don't use unless I have a backlit image. I don't think it would do much here. That was way too much, sorry. So usually so the key with most of these edits is like subtlety, So it starts getting pretty wacky. Maybe it's, but I like it with my backlit images. It really separates them out. And camera calibration, I just never use it. I've had to use it for one lens that consistently did something, but I don't. That's it. I am not going to crop this image. It's pretty good. Well, maybe a touch to kind of get them a little more centered. But otherwise it's pretty good. You can, here's a local adjustments. You can like just do a little bit of exposure. So for like this guy, if I needed to, why is that not showing that preview? If I really felt like his eyes were too dark in there, I could kind of give a little bright exposure to their eyes. And the cool thing about this tool is you can do that. Oh, that's not enough. Well, let's pull it up more or more. It'll go crazy in a second. It'll catch up. Oh. Oh, I see. Here we go. Why is it not showing? There we go. Oh, I see. Sorry, I had a different thing going. There you go. Can really brighten their eyes if you needed to. But either way, that's weird. I don't know why I did that. So that's about all I would do to this image. Again, if I really wanted to get in there, but I've got like 4 dozen of these photos to do. So for this sort of grip and grin thing, I would leave it.